Well, I think that we might also in the future have a program on artificial intelligence for professionals and which products are on the market and like that. But Annette, as the first, ECTA's first vice president, you are in charge of the program. I want just to tell everyone that ECTA actually just introduced a programming committee for the first time. Can you tell us what is the aim of this and what are the plans while you are in charge of the program over the next year? What are the topics that are of our concern?
Thank you, Mladen. Well, first of all, for in this improvised invitation to let me join the session. It's true that ECTA, as of this conference, has started a new program committee to support the first vice president in making the academic program. So far, it's been the responsibility of the first vice president. It will remain like that, but now we will have a pool of topics more generally searched for and gathered by a program committee. Usually, when we do the program, we invite the committee leaderships to come with topics because they are very much the persons that work with the details and that are on top of various topics and what is of concern, what is developing, what will be interesting to learn in next year's conference. And so for the request for the last year has been very much focusing, of course, on legal stuff, legal practical stuff like we have on the agenda for this program, but also more and more on technologies. This is really emerging as a big topic. It is also for the coming years, how to use blockchain, not only the theoretical information I think everyone has received, but also really in practical life, how to actually use it, how to work with it. And artificial intelligence and how it changes the tools we use in our profession and probably even what the clients are expecting from us is very much also something that is of concern on a broad scale from the committees. So that will be something we will try to have on the program also for next year.
Thank you very much. If I can add a remark on that, tied to what you have said, quoting Francis Gary, about displacing rather than replacing people. I think that this very much captures the most significant challenge, including for associations such as ECTA. We need to find the justification for what we do in this new setup. And one where we are uniquely qualified, in my view, is ethical component. So I think that, you know, if you have asked me last year, I would say it's technology, everything, the future, it's technology. Over the last year, my thinking has evolved that it's actually about humanity. It's actually about ethics. And if we want to keep the role, I think that we need to deepen our involvement with that. You know, sometimes I joke with my students and I tell them, look, both techies and lawyers are not really good at ethics. You know, this is kind of threatening picture, really. We have to devote more effort, and I certainly hope that we will be involved in the discussions of this type in the future. If I can just ask you, Mr. Archambault, about how do you think ECTA can contribute to the strategic plan that is being developed for the next year?
Well, I think we already have quite a lot of support from ECTA in let's say, keeping us on the right track, I will call it, by participating very much in the activities that we deploy. On registration services, for example, their participation into the quality assurance panels is very much welcome. We also have, of course, the evolution of our guidelines for examiners, where they play a significant role as well. But I think if you look towards the future, I think, as I've said, one of the things that we want to look into is to move away from the one-size-fits-all in the delivery of services. And I think there, ECTA is probably in a unique position to be able to guide us and advise us as well on what are the services that are missing and that we should provide, and what are maybe services that we provide today that do not give sufficient added value or are more restrictive than helpful. So the next 12 months there are going to be quite important into defining the route and looking at the business case of the different projects that we want to implement. And there's going to be a lot of changes through technology. And I think there, let's say, the support on the inception phase of this project is important. And finally, we have talked about the ever-increasing complexity of the system and the fact that you were saying products don't fit into small boxes anymore. Well, we are faced with the same issues as well. I mean, we can no longer look at trademark without having a look at geographical indications, for example. You should not have a look at the trademark filing unless you have a domain name registration that comes more or less instantly at the same time. And so that means that this joining up of the different titles and of the different competencies is something that we see also as a big part of the future. And there, of course, if there is a push from the users towards the legislators in Europe, so the Commission and the Parliament, to entrust us with additional competencies in that field, this will also help us to define, to deliver, let's say, more unified and more integrated services to the users. But for that, of course, we need the competence. So from pre-registration to enforcement, but also across the different titles.
Yes, thank you. Indeed, I hope that this call for contribution will be taken with enthusiasm that we usually have as an association, and that we will grasp this chance to contribute as much as possible. Just tying in back with the SMEs, obviously people in this room work a lot directly with SMEs. SMEs are the backbone of the European economy, if you will, and I think that the mandate that you are getting from the legislator is showing this. This is also the question to Annette and to Mr. Archambault in the first place. What are we, prepared? How are we prepared to do, and what, again, you expect specifically in relation to SMEs?
Well, on SMEs, as you said, the legislation, the Commission in this case, has asked us to make a particular effort to help SMEs use IP. Why? Because it is well documented now that the use of IP or intensive use of IP makes companies more successful, more robust, and generate more turnover and more employment. So that's something that we would like to get into. Of course, if you want to address this issue, the first thing is to attract SMEs to the system. Only 9% of SMEs use any form of IP title. That means that more than 90% don't. And of the ones that use it, a lot of them only use a single title or at least one type of title. And if we talk about small and medium enterprise, if you talk to a startup, for example, their first concern is not the registration of a trademark. Their first concern is having access to finance. It is maybe to create a website to have a presence online. And very often, when you talk about small and medium enterprise, they are developing a product. And if they are developing a product, very often people start to talk to them about patents. Now, a patent takes 5 years to obtain. It costs you in Europe an average of 40,000 euro to actually get it. And we don't talk to them anywhere near enough about designs. I mean, we're talking about designs. If you have a small company that develops a product, you can talk to them about an initial design protection, which will cost them a few €100, and that will be able to register it in a matter of days. And this will speak to them, and it is then the hook that you have to attract an SME and show them the benefit of a concrete protection. Talk to them about domain names. And then eventually they will come to trademarks and maybe patents if they are really successful. But I think one of the biggest obstacle we have is awareness and what's in it for me. Why should I bother about this at this stage? And I think there you and your members, because of the proximity you have to these companies, because you talk to them about other things, because you have access also to the Chamber of Commerce, to the local associations. You are in a unique position to generate interest, and we would like to work with you to generate awareness campaigns, to maybe organize competitions, maybe to organize events. In which you have the power of attraction of those SME, which for me is the first step.
Well, thank you very much. This conforms to a great degree with my experience. I was working with startup companies over the last 6-7 years a lot, and one thing that I have found, and this goes also as a part of the question to Annette, I have found that if I speak to the startups as a lawyer and try to offer IP protection as such in the traditional terms, that is a very little reaction. And before the first serious round of funding, when they have some funds after all, I mean, there's no real work of us. Even the advisory work, which you tell them, I tell them always, you have to keep this in mind, because if you skip this along the way, you will have less price at exit, and things like that. They don't even listen to that. It's not easy for us to do that. So how do we deal with that, Annette? And what else do you have to comment on this?
Well, I have a few comments, but I don't know if I have the solution to your question. Rather, perhaps other questions to pose in that return. I would like to say that we will, of course, as ECTA, love to take part in the strategic plan for EU-IPO and provide input on that. I think that is already being done by the President and the Council, gathering comments for that. I think also that one of the things you mentioned was continuous learning, and I think that is a key, and that is something that is very dear to ECTA. We are participating where we can in continuous learning, and I think that is the way to go about this, also with the information to SMEs. It's true that they are often very distant to the idea of IP protection, and that some of the rights we have in our bag to offer are perhaps not adequate to the situations where SMEs are in. That's at least also my personal experience, that there is a gap. And I think also we need to perhaps use the force that we have as lawyers, and not being a software that can think, but we really have the creativity with us as persons, as lawyers, and we should use that in how to help them in places in their situation, and look at what it is they actually need, rather than what we have to sell or use of our products, perhaps. But that's my personal view. I think these are all topics that ECTA will be looking into, and I think we will not so much as individual lawyers, but use actually the strength that ECTA has when we go together and combine the opinion, when we debate properly within us, our committees and the council, to produce proper opinions, and where we can actually put in some help on getting awareness to the SMEs, perhaps even modernize some of the tools, how to combine them. And I think also for us it's very much a question of, you have a number of rights that you can offer, but as you said, what can you actually use them for? It's what they are not supposed to be dry papers in your drawer. They're supposed to be active rights that you can use as a company. So how do you actually put them to use, to work? I think that is for me at least, that is something that is really interesting to look into.
Yes, maybe also look at the expansion of the range of services. SMEs will usually go first to a chamber of commerce because they need access to finance, and the chamber of commerce will have small channels with either banks or financial institutions, etc. Why not try and associate yourself with some activities together with Chamber of Commerce to get access through these people, and then to present IP as one of the tools to get finance and to help. Maybe you don't ever need to go there as the main partner, but maybe as a support partner for chambers of commerce in the framework of offering finance. And you say, if you want finance and you want collaterals and guarantees, maybe you could use IP protection as an added. And at the other hand, once the people are in the system, we are going to look, for example, at easy access to justice, so alternative dispute resolution. Maybe there is something, some activities that can be developed there on your side. You can also decide to have limited pro bono schemes for small and medium enterprise in case of litigation. I think there is a whole, but you need to widen the perspective and the horizon, let's say, from the traditional IP law and IP law services. I think that's the key for the future.
Thank you. I would fully agree. I really think that actually we have realized already that rules have changed so much that we just cannot do things in a traditional way anymore. I picked on the word creativity that Annette mentioned. Some of you may recall that last year in Athens, I have spoken about the shift that I expect in the legal profession from the skills-based profession to a creative profession. What does that mean? That means that the lawyers will need to deploy design thinking. So actually our look at the design might have a much more elevated meaning, really. We might become really helping people design relations in a way that not entail only law, which the example of ADR shows. I mean, I am 20 years already in ADR, and I'm a mediator and a mediation trainer because I realized that the clients don't want only law to be offered to them. So this is the process that I see ECTA having a great space to, and your involvement and contribution in this will make for exciting next years. Yes, Grégoire.
Well, this is truly inspiring, Vlad, and if I may rebound on this, I think this is where we may be circling back to artificial intelligence in particular. What you just described, you know, the profession turning less or turning away from being just, you know, the prosecution aspect and more towards guidance with an overall concept, really a design, a vision, a strategic vision, will happen because artificial intelligence will completely reshape the profession and the services that are offered within the profession. I think you've mentioned it, Mr. Archambault, you know, those interfaces that allow you to assess, the percentage of likelihood for this result or that result, or interfaces that would perform a number of functions for you. As they proliferate amongst offices, and it's something that we want to do, and it's something that we're supporting at WIPO through our work on artificial intelligence. We want to make sure that offices are no office is left behind in embracing the potential that artificial intelligence brings in terms of improving the performance of offices. But at the same time, the profession will have to adapt, especially those services that are peripheral to the core legal issues. Some of these services will disappear, others will emerge. And so I think that there's very deep rethinking of what is the added value of an IP attorney, an IP agent within that ambit.
What are your views, if I may ask, about that? What are your worries? What are your, how do you see these topics, if you will? Please let us know. Yes. Yes, there is a microphone is coming. Thank you.
My name is Luis Alfonso Duran from Spain. I want to congratulate the speakers and the moderators for this presentation and discussion. It's very useful. But I wanted to add another perspective from what you are discussing. The offices, WIPO, EWIPO, it's natural that they pretend to attract filings. You sell that. The profession is logic that we attempt to attract clients, but we do not attract clients only for filing. We attract clients for giving advice. And filing may be one of the receipts from the result of advising. Sometimes we'll be filing, sometimes we'll be not filing, sometimes we'll be being careful, etc., etc. And this, we are already doing that. I mean, and I think that because Mr. Archambault and Mr. Bisson, you are here, I don't think that you should take a wrong image of our profession. Our profession is already doing that from many, many years. When our approach to a client is the client has a problem, and we have to study the problem and give them the advice how to deal with that problem. Sometimes we'll be protecting, sometimes we'll be avoiding to do something, sometimes we'll be doing something else. So in this idea of trying to help SMEs, I don't believe that we should go with the way of just file. No, it's go for advice. And in this project, I believe that EWIPO, WIPO, and ECTA, we should work together. And you offices should also take us more as partners, because we are there to help these SMEs to do what they need. Sometimes filing, sometimes not filing, sometimes opposing, investigating, making research. And I think that this is something that we should deepen. I believe that the two offices, that you are very powerful now, you have a lot of resources, you should take us more in consideration, because we are there to make us an interface between you and between SMEs. Because SMEs are precisely those who do not know anything. And if they go filing directly, probably they will do it wrong. And I believe that it's not the role of the offices to give advice. You are there to protect the public. And the advice should go from independent people like us. So My proposal is that we should join forces and deepen into our collaboration in order to get this objective, to generate added value to the public in general and to SMEs in particular. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis Alfonso, for sharing your views. Please.
Yes, I think we are on the same line. And I would like to then apologize if I have given the impression that what we want to do is to increase the number of filings, because that's not the case. We are in discussion with the European Commission. The European Commission is preparing for the arrival of the new college, so a new commission for 5 years, and is devising a 5-year plan in which they want to develop a new and better European Union industrial policy. One of the things that is important in this endeavor is that they have said that they want to put IP rights as a prominent element of this industrial policy. Of course, when they do that, they probably first think about patents. But the fact that IPRs are going to be an important element of this industrial policy means that we all have an opportunity to contribute. And we have been asked as office to contribute to the setting up of this new EU policy, and also with a special focus on SMEs. And it is fair to say that when we first discussed this with the Commission, they said, yes, so you are going EU IPO to create a new website specialized for SMEs where centrally you are going to offer all the services. And we said, no, no. First, this is bound to fail because, I mean, the SMEs across Europe are very diverse. You have many, many sectors. You have many languages, many traditions. So there is no way we could do this centrally. And in any case, we don't want to. We want to rely on the networks that we have created. We have created network with the users, and we have created network with the national offices. And so basically what we want to do is facilitate the collaboration at local level between the different actors, national offices, Chamber of Commerce, for example, users association, so everybody has a role to play. We will only be there as a kind of facilitator, and we'll also assist with some funding, particularly in the case of national offices to attract SMEs. But the main purpose of this program will be to foster innovation, not to generate filings. And I think that is important. What we want is a successful industrial policy. We want innovation to be dynamic in Europe. And what we believe, and that is true, is that IP rights are an important part of that, but definitely not the only one, and definitely not the main one. Yeah? So I think everybody in this room will have an opportunity to contribute to this program, and we will only be there as facilitators.
Thank you for sharing this additional information. Gregor, we have run out of time, and I'm mindful that the organizer wants us to finish, so I don't think we are taking more questions, but the last comments, all of the panelists, please.
Thank you, Vlad, and I'll be brief, and thank you indeed, Mr. Durand, for your intervention. Of course, we highly regard the profession at WIPO, as you would know, and we do have an SME program that engages with civil societies. I think my point to rebound is that indeed, I fully agree with you, it would be a fallacy, it would be a terrible result if the fact that officers would move towards more user-friendly tools using artificial intelligence would lead to a situation where the unaware business person would feel capable of securing rights of any sort because we've made it easy at the prosecution level. I agree, you've really put the finger on a very high risk, which only I think underscores the need for the profession and us to work even more closely together so that we make sure that the SMEs in particular become more aware of the importance of understanding intellectual property and the value that the profession can bring in terms of counseling. Yeah, I think that's very encouraging. Thank you.
Thank you. Annette, would you like to close?
Yes, I think as speaking, if I can, for ECTA, I think Mr. Archambault actually said it earlier, that we work together, but that you also appreciate our input to keep you on track. And I think those are keywords for an organization as ECTA, that we also see that we are allowed and we want to tell you where we do not believe in things or where we believe they should be changed in a constructive manner. And I think that is also a pledge for an organization like ECTA.
Thank you very much, all the panelists. I was thrilled to have you on the panel, very honored that you have participated in ECTA conference this year. I wish you to enjoy the rest of time here with us in Edinburgh. And thanks to the audience in the first place for your attention and your questions. Thank you very much all.